Who are these guys?
Cam, who should Miami
Bums.
sign as their next DP?
Did he just call us bums?
Bunch of whack dudes.
Yeah.
What is that good?
Okay, say bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Okay, now you have to go.
Hi, Cam.
My outfit.
No, I'm working in here right now. Oh, greetings, and welcome to Extra Time, driven by Continental from Vacaville, California. I'm Andrew Wiebe with my partners in soccer, Matt Doyle, David Goss, Charlie Davies. What's up? Happy anniversary, everybody. Happy birthday to Dave. He's now in the 30 club. You're washed. Congratulations. Yeah. How do you feel? You thought we forgot, and I did. And then I didn't, and now I didn't again, and now we're wishing you happy birthday.
Officially, no one cares about the things I say anymore, so I'm irrelevant to the world. It's been a good run.
Generation Z is going to flush you right down the toilet. Yeah. So any of those listeners out there have officially tuned out for us. But happy anniversary to, I guess, us and many others. We have a big show today. We'll get to a lot. We are going to get back on the greatest team of all time bracket on Thursday. We want your votes, so we won't do that today. Of course, MLS is back July 8th. I do want to remind everybody, NWSL is back way before that on June 27th. So in about 2 weeks' time here, a little less than that. So keep that in mind for the Utah 2020 Challenge Cup. But it is, according to Kershaw, who I trust on these matters, previously Extra Time Radio's 10th anniversary, 10 years of this podcast. That is insane. That is crazy. This is only the most recent iteration. Of course, the OGs are Nick Kershaw, Simon Borg, Greg Lawless, and Jason Sagini. I was a listener since day one. Are there any other day one listeners in our group right now? I'm assuming, Charlie, you're going to keep your hand down. Yeah, just Doyle and I.
It was actually, it's the 10-year anniversary of my start at MLSsoccer.com as well, because I was brought in as a freelancer during the group stage of the 2010 World Cup to cover the desk because Greg and Kershaw and Simon, and Sagini was part of it too, though he was on the video side. But Greg and Kershaw and Simon would go into a boardroom and do 4-hour episodes of Extra Time every day during that World Cup. So that's how I remember that this was my start as well. But yeah, I listened to that first episode. It was, I think, Sagini hosting it, but it was really just a free-for-all where Sagini, Borg, and Lawless just argued about everything and talked over each other the whole time. And with Simon and Jason especially, is the sky blue or is it pink or is it green? It didn't matter what the subject was. They would just lock horns and refuse to let go for an hour at a time.
I'm also pretty sure we don't host any of that anymore, so a lot of it's gone away. I downloaded a fair amount of it before that. I'm pretty sure the first ever episode is about an hour before they started. They knew they were on, of them talking, not knowing they're on, which is pure class.
I mean, honestly, I enjoy sometimes our pre-show meetings more than I enjoy the show itself. And I really like doing this show. It's like my professional highlight twice a week to get to do it. I remember laughing a lot at just the inane things that were being said and the arguments that were being had. And I remember my coworkers at my job at the National Insurance Producer Registry in Kansas City, poking their head over the quintessential cubicle being like, what is going on? I'm on a call right now. Why are you cackling about some soccer stuff? And then 2 years later, they, my boss slid across the desk a report about my internet usage and said, why are you refreshing MLSsoccer.com nearly 700 times a day? And I said, this is why, and I'm leaving for New York City. I'll see you later. And I was such a huge fan of the show. And when I got there, I obviously wasn't on the show. And it was like I wanted to be on the show. How could I be on the show? And I begged, I'm pretty sure Simon and Nick for a long time. They finally let me on. And I felt so nervous. I felt like I didn't know what the hell I was talking about. Probably true. And they just kind of held my hand and walked me through it. I remember in interviews especially, I would try to, you're all sitting around and you're doing the little finger raise. I got something. I got a good question. And Nick and Simon would just stiff arm me. They would just be like, no. I'm jumping
so
in
that's
here.
where
Don't you worry
that?
about it. Yeah.
That's good to know the genesis of that.
So, but man, and then when Nick left, I felt a ton of pressure to be half the host he was. And of course, if you listened off the top, it's not the normal greeting; it's his greeting, which was so iconic for years and years and years. They made this show; we've carried it on, and I'm super proud to be a part of it. Do we have any favorite memories to share before we get to some listener tweets?
Champs.
Yeah, oh God, just Simon in general.
Yeah. Simon is the greatest of all time. Nothing that any of us has ever done will ever touch just an average Simon extra time performance. And it's a loss to the entire content world that he's decided to be a suit instead of a content producer. But, oh well.
I think one of my favorites is when one of his neighbors passed away and he didn't know how to pay his respects. He didn't know if he should go downstairs and just say something, if he should slip a note under the door, if he should go to the wake, how he should handle this very delicate process that just took like 5 seconds, 3 words, condolences, I'm thinking about you, and walking away. Everything always got blown up. I also remember trapping birds in Malta and all the Jesmond stories. And then for years, I've thought about how you spell Jesmond. I've like written it out on paper. I've been like, is this how you spell Jesmond? Who is Jesmond? And how do you spell his name? And then always the classic Mets tryout story. In the, what was it, Tweety Bird? Or was it?
Yeah, the Tweety Bird t-shirt.
Yeah, or the Tasmanian Devil t-shirt.
That was before I joined, and I listened to that, and I was like, what the hell is going on? There's no way this is a true story. Like, there was no way. And then you met him, and he's like, yeah, no, 100% happened. And I still to this day don't understand how that was even possible.
He's like, I was in Malta. I thought I was throwing gas.
Yeah.
Turns out it was low 80s.
Oh, man.
Charlie's like, boy, none of this is landing with me right now.
Yeah.
We have some. But look, the show has changed, Charlie, and that's the beauty of Extra Time. Is it's never been one thing. It's always sort of like rolled on. Whether we were in the room with the water radiator that would clank when somebody was lying or like basically speaking out their butt, or if we were in the green room or the blue room or the phone booth over at 420, or in an Airbnb after a U.S. Open Cup with some brown liquor. I mean, this on a hotel room floor, aka Bobby Warshaw's struggle bus post All-Star game. I mean, this show, from those 4 originals to myself to Doyle to Dave to you to Kaylin to Susanna to Bobby. I mean, am I missing any regular occurrence in there? Am I missing a host? Is that everybody?
Did you mention Kaylin?
Yeah, I did.
Okay.
Of course
I missed Kaylin.
The least often host that we've had Ariel on a bit when she was working at MLS. Rosie came on here and there.
Yeah.
And Rosie's still at MLS. We've had Ben, who you definitely didn't mention.
Yeah, Ben right now is furious.
Ben's golfing in Westchester, furious right now.
Ben?
Yeah, it's a good question, Doyle.
Hard to remember. But it's been special every single moment. It is, like I said, the highlight of my professional life, just because it's us sitting around BSing. Before we get to our favorite, maybe modern day moment, and I'm going to have to throw in Charlie raising his hand and going to the bathroom mid-show. I still laugh every time I think about that. Patrick Sharkey says that the enthusiasm for MLS from Extra Time is infectious. He says this show helped him fall in love with the league. And I think of all the responses that we got, that is the one that I hope is the most replicable. That's the one that I hope that people feel. Like, we love this. We love talking about it. We love being around each other. And we hope that in some way it's helped you enjoy Major League Soccer more. Curry Cole Smith, a memory from him listening to an interview with the Atlanta Once MLS and Matt Stiegel in late 2013. This was when we were talking to the members of Terminus Legion back in those days about what they wanted to bring to Atlanta, and it's incredible what it became. He joined the events team and he became the membership coordinator in 2014, and it became an incredible. We had a tweet here about the Americans Abroad series that we did in the offseason. Like, I don't know, this might have been 4 years ago, Dave. One of the interviews
interviewed the guy from Costa Rica.
This is one, David Petty, if I remember correctly, about a family who owned a team down in Costa Rica. That whole series was great. I keep wanting to hear more of those kinds of stories. JDB says, not a specific memory, but sometime back when Doyle still lived in California, RIP, March to the Match. I realized that I was listening to every episode of Extra Time and I've subscribed to MLS Live. So we were the gateway drug there. There's a memory from Mark about his first episode was a hilarious interview with Roger Levesque. He became Levesque. He became hooked right then. I sounded that one out. That's a bad habit as a reader. And also, this is a favorite memory, Simon Borg defending accusations of looking like an alley cat and explaining why he hides in the corner when eating sardines at MLS HQ. Oh, God. Great memories, man. Great memories. Before we move on, Charlie, I know these have been throwbacks to before your day.
Yeah. Charlie, this was a time when the show talked about what Charlie Davies did on a soccer field. That's what we're talking about.
Yeah.
What's in your gut when it comes to extra time, man?
I just love the fact that we show up on a Monday. Sometimes I've been a part of the Thursday show, but just after weekend and just going in on performances, on the potential ending of the season, who's going to finish where, who's going to be in the playoffs, who's going to go into it hot and make that run, the improbable runs. I just love the fact that we share those, our feelings, our emotions, and it's not censored. I feel like we can be who we are and talk, and state what we think is really going to happen. I love the fact that you guys we have great chemistry, and I love being a part of this show. So I haven't spent enough time on the show to say, man, this moment really resonates with me, and, give me a couple more years and I'll say, I'm ready to go. Let's do it. This month, this show was off the chain. This was it. But as of now, I look forward to every Monday because I really enjoy, sitting with you guys and talking about the weekend.
It's a lot of laughs, man. We're happy to be back talking about soccer too. Of course, MLS is back coming on July 8th. So about a month to, I guess, a week, 3 weeks maybe even to start breaking that down. As I said, greatest team of all time is going to come back on Thursday. Kevin Durant.
Joe's
by the way,
FaceTiming me right now.
Really? Oh,
that's the closest we can get him to coming on Extra Time.
I'll get Josie on. I'll get Josie on.
Yeah, I mean, if you want to answer it right now, yeah. So look, if you have memories,
he's just trying to make sure they win greatest team of all time, but he was off by a show. So tell him to call back on Thursday.
Yeah, okay. Thursday. We're good. We're right here on Thursday with him. Or Monday, if he wants to do Monday too, nice. With Chuck D. And our of course, there have been other podcasts. March to the Match with Jonah and Thomas Shevitz and Doyle was a classic back in the day. Then First Shot came in. But right now, our sister podcast, The Call Up, of course, is a must listen.
Out Dan Hayek. In this house, we respect Dan Hayek.
I was actually going to mention Dan Hayek produced ETR during the 2014 World Cup because Dave just went and was like, screw it. And Weeby was down there for work. I'm pretty sure it broke Dan Hayek's complete spirit to do that. So I want to say that's one of the casualties of this show, but respect to Dan Hayek for doing that. And then from that moment on, proceeding to have an epic life that I wish that I had experienced.
Go subscribe to The Call Up.
Yep,
7 p.m. On Tuesdays on YouTube. Sasha Kleshchin is the guest this week. So go tune into that. And of course, go ahead.
Since we have March to the Matchup, can I just throw – this is one of those things I'll always remember about Doyle and flame him on whenever I get an opportunity. TFC signed Sebastian Javinko, I think, on a Tuesday or Wednesday. So we hadn't done a show yet. Or maybe I didn't work for MLS yet. I don't know. So I listened to March to the Match because I was so excited. I love Javinko. And Doyle comes on, and it's cold water for 55 minutes of – how can you say he's worth it? He's not that good. Is he 10 times better than Javier Morales? This is a ridiculous signing. The fact that people care this much is Euro snob garbage. And I was like, whoa, dude, this guy is wrong. But it only was a couple.
I'll take the L on that one, man. Javinko lived up. I think we can agree with that.
That was one of my favorite March to the Match moments.
Yeah, if you have any of our bad takes from the past, feel free to bring those as well, because we love to revel in those moments. Those are always fun. And I guess if you want to throw in, my favorite two shows of the year are the prediction show before the year and the show when we revisit the predictions after the year and have to just roast ourselves.
The Wanda won't hit double digits.
Hey, I'll never live that down. It'll never go away. Let's talk about some soccer, though. MLS is back tournament. July 8th is when it kicks off. You watched the draw last Thursday, one of the most nerve-wracking moments of Charlie Davies' life. And we broke it all down. So if you want to check out the Breakdown Thursday show, let's get to let's ease our way in, let's say. Mm-hmm. Leanne from Kansas. She is a stalwart on this show as far as the mailbag goes.
Shout out,
I asked
Leanne.
for questions this morning. Prairie Girl, what's up? She said, you should discuss which team's rosters would be the most and the least fun to be cooped up with in a hotel for over a month. And my understanding is, based on our conversation with Margot Patukian, is that there'll be floors for each team. Everybody will have their own room. So you don't have to share rooms, Charlie. But when you think about putting a team on one floor of a hotel for a whole month in the middle of a pandemic, in a quote-unquote sort of lockdown, playing games every couple of days with every other team there. I mean, it's kind of like preseason, but there's a lot more wrinkles. Before we choose the teams we want to be with, what are the different things at play here? Who are the different personality types that you're looking at? How are the interactions? How are the meals? What should we base this around?
You look in the dynamic of a locker room. So it's got to be a good balance between veterans and the leaders versus the young guys, the guys who have personality, the guys who are, whether it's like the young student type versus the young guy who thinks he's the big time player and can call the shots, who's on the massage table and he's 20 years old, those kind of guys. The guys who are, the class clown, the guys who can get people to laugh all the time versus the guys who are much more serious, hold everyone accountable. And then the guys in between, right? The guys who come up with the card games and the games to get everybody involved, and versus the guys who are like, oh, let's juggle in our off time. I got to sit down. I got to juggle. I got to dribble. I got to, go do extra. The guys who are over the top. It's got to be you got to have a good mix. And that's the key to a good locker room is you don't have everyone who's super into the sport and want to be like students and learn and everything soccer versus the guys who are just like, let's just kick it for a little bit. Training starts at 10:30. We'll go out there at like 10:28, 10:29. We'll be fine.
You gotta love Charlie coming on the show and being like, I only trust players who watch tape and care all the time. But then coming on here and being like, but I don't want to be in a locker room with them and I don't want to be stuck with them on my team.
Yeah, you're not lying about that. You're not lying about that. You don't want to be.
How much does the coach
like that?
How much does the coach matter here? Like as we make this choice,
Huge.
like does the coach matter, or is he just sort of like okay?
Huge. The coach sets the tone. He also has to give freedom to players so they feel comfortable. They're not stressed out all the time because if you make the wrong move, you're afraid that your playing time's gone or you're not going to start or you're not going to get a new contract. That is I can't stress the importance of a good coach, a good leader who gives freedom to their players, but also holds them accountable, tells, maybe it's a captain. He allows the captain to kind of run the locker room and dictate, should we get an off day? Should we push it? Being able to communicate with his players, that plays a huge part of a team success is the coach. And sometimes players can be inspired or motivated to play better in spite of a coach, right? So it's like, let's come together, let's not listen to this guy, which works for the short term, not the long term, right? So I can't tell you how important it is that the coach is with the group, gets an understanding of his group, and the players kind of being like, oh, we can trust our coach. We can play for this guy.
Can I throw one more question out there, either for Doyle or Charlie, because they both played at such a high level, but Charlie could take it first. Does it actually matter who has the armband? Like if you're in a team, I don't know, someone pick an MLS team.
Dallas.
So you have Dallas.
That's exactly who I was going to say.
Nice.
Okay.
Who's the official captain of Dallas? Is it Acosta?
Hedges.
It's got to be Hedges.
Right. It's Hedges. Okay. If Hedges doesn't have the armband, or you've got well, this is a weird team because they're so young. But you've got
Seattle.
other.
Go to Seattle.
Okay. So who's the captain of Seattle? Ladero. Does that mean Christian Roldan and Stephen Fry are not still leaders? Like they are who they are, right? Like, does it matter if you are the official captain in a cultural setting in the hotel when you're traveling?
No, it's more so when you're on the field and you have the armband on.
Right.
I mean, captain's captain. Usually given the captaincy because of one of three things. The coach loves you to death and thinks, I need to have you wear the captain to show how much you mean to me or the organization or the fans. B, because he is a leader in the locker room and he does all the small details, and you hope that every player on that team can use him as inspiration, or he's an example, and you want everyone to follow that example, whether it's like, an hour or an hour and a half early to the training facility, stays there. He's the last guy to leave, first guy to get there, last guy to leave, does all the stretching, does all the extra work, is just in the video room, just always doing those things. And you're like, oh, this is the guy. Or it's the guy that all the team respect the most, like the teammates respect him the most. And he's the reason why he's the captain, because all the guys on the inside are like, this is the guy we want wearing the armband. So it's one of those three things. Because I've seen it where a coach is just like, here, wear the armband to a player that is the best player on the team, but everyone in the locker room is like, he's not a captain. There's nothing about him. But the coach thinks if I put the armband on him, maybe he'll start to act like a captain, or he'll start to change his way of life around the locker room, or off the field. Maybe that will get him to buy in. I'm trying to get him to buy in. Maybe it's to buy into the team, or just buy into what he's trying to preach on the field, whether it's his tactics, formation. If I give him the captain armband, maybe he'll listen to me and he'll respect me. I've seen that, and I've seen that backfire. So I'll tell you though, the captaincy is very important, and you might not think players care or pay attention. Everyone is. So when that coach comes out and says, here's our captain, everyone is talking about it on the inside. Whether they agree with it, they don't agree with it, or they don't care about it. It's one of the three.
It's like any group. There's a lot of dynamics here.
Yep.
We've kind of run over what can be in this. I mean, who's bringing what? Are you succeeding in this tournament? I think that will matter on your floor in MLS Real World. And since David has his answer, kick us off. Where are you going?
It's got to be Minnesota United. One, you're talking about coach with personality who's going to give you a little license, but then you look at that group, and I think what Charlie was saying, and what I like personally, is people from all different backgrounds, different ages, different points of view. You've got Ozzy, who's leading, obviously, as a veteran, and then you've got young guys like Mason Toy, who are, good young players that care and work hard, but also fun off the field. Ethan Finley, obviously, best Settlers of Catan player in MLS, so something to do on the side. You've got Ike, who is a good leader in the locker room, a fun guy to be around. So I think you've got a bunch of different veterans, young guys, everyone can fit in between, and some good license to be a personality. Plus, you got Hot Boy. Who else am I going to hang out with for 2 months but the legend, Hot Boy Kevin Molina?
Yeah,
so it's got it all for me.
You
and
just
you
took
get to
him
wear
off my
dope jerseys.
plate.
Shout out to Minnesota.
I'm frustrated. I don't get that one. I think I'm going to go with the Colorado Rapids here for a couple different reasons. First of all, you need a cut. You got it. Keegan Rosenberry is going to keep you fresh. None of this willy-nilly haircut, looking a little bit rangy when you come out on the field in Orlando. Keegan's got everybody set. And then it is a young team, but it has some veteran to it as well. So I think in Lawless Abubakar, you're going to be smiling the whole time. The interview I did with this guy in preseason, I walked out of there, I just faced both the biggest Joker grin you could have. He gave me from literally 10 minutes. Then you've got Sam Vines, Trusty, but then if you need a little bit of veteran side, here comes Drew Moore. Talk about MLS all day with this dude. Do a little family chat as well, because in case you didn't, I have a kid. And then Kai Kamara is going to keep it light as well. Rubio,
I'm a little worried about the fact that you think, still in your own head, that you and Sam Vines and Austin Trusty are hanging out.
I don't know if we're hanging out. I'm just gonna
The only thing you could tell them about is when man first landed on the moon. And
wow. I'm just gonna say, Operation Desert Storm.
Yeah, exactly. Making Stormy Norman jokes.
There you go. Thank you. You just threw back a Wichita Wings reference. That is legit. Oh no, that wasn't.
I thought that was a Gulf War reference.
I can't connect. Yeah,
I don't know. I wasn't really alive in that.
I go straight to the Wichita Wings with just about everything these days. But there's a lot of youth, but there is some older side. I just think that team after last year, like Charlie said, terrible start, had no other option but to band together. They as a group had to say, the leadership side of this not working for us. So we're going to figure out how to do it. They did it under 2 coaches. Now they have Robin, who I think will give them a little bit of latitude to be who they are. We'll give them good structure as well. I just think that their floor would have a lot of different things going on, and I'd be wanting to pop into all those rooms. Like Clint Irwin, I know I can have some really interesting like life discussions with Clint Irwin, and that's where I'd be going with Ike Opara too, Dave. I think if you sat down with Ike, you could talk to him about literally anything.
You can't sit down with Ike, dude. That's my team. Those are my friends.
That's what I'm saying.
You get your own.
You
friends.
get that. Yeah, you get that.
Don't tell me what I get, Andrew.
Fine,
This is my thing.
fine. I'm taking the Rapids. Anybody else have a team that they want to room with here?
Charlie's in a little bit more dangerous area because he actually knows some of the people on these teams, so he can offend people he actually knows. Doyle, do you have a response?
No, every single permutation of this sounds like a nightmare to me. Being locked in a hotel with 2,000 jocks and no ability to go outside or eat real, none of. There's no good answer to this. It's all a nightmare.
This is like a youth tournament, a U16 youth tournament.
Yeah.
And you're just locked in, and that's it.
Yeah.
You don't know
No,
your version of not answering?
I passed. Someone
Sorry?
else.
Was that your version of not answering, Charlie?
Yeah, I mean, there's probably 4 teams I would go with, and I'm just not going to elaborate on it. Just
Wow.
yeah, because I have a lot of friends still playing. I have I've made some new friends of the younger generation that are playing, and I know every coach. So I'm just gonna have to pass on this one, my man.
Here's a proposal. Extra time listeners, please send us your mailbags of what you think Charlie's teams would be. Why? List the 4 teams he would pick. List the guys he's friends with, the guys he can't offend.
Yes, there you go.
And also stick Doyle on the team you think he'd be most miserable on. Thank you.
Doyle, is there any current MLS coach or player you know of that is a musical theater enthusiast in any way?
Oh, that's a good question. There's none that I know of, to be honest.
Yeah,
with you.
I can't think of one.
Yeah, I'm sure there's some players who got pipes though.
Yeah.
Who's the new Icelandic guy for NYCFC? He's a singer. Maybe he knows some Icelandic musical theater he could teach you. Is he Icelandic or is he
I
Finnish?
think he's Norwegian.
Iceland.
He's Icelandic.
He's Icelandic?
Yeah,
He's
we've had him on American or MLS Idol.
Yeah, no, that's my favorite show. So I've watched every episode.
Yeah, I'm sure you have.
And then wait, who was it who played piano? Oh, it was the Harvard kid, Wheeler Omiunu. He could sing. Oh my God, he could sing. With him.
He's got it all. But you gotta go to Sacramento for a little bit.
I mean, that's fine. You could set up all right. So I'm into it now, right? I will be with whatever team he's with, even if they're in USL. We just got to set up a piano bar in the lounge, like in the first floor lounge of the hotel, and then we sit down there and we sing show tunes all night.
When I tell you, he is a tremendously skilled, talented individual. It is that's just a small. I think just gives you a small snippet of what he's like capable of. Andrew Wheeler Aminu, Harvard grad. Yeah. Just
all right. So that's my answer. Look, I was being really cynical about it, but you brought me there, David. Well done.
And by the way, now we have another idea because we need some group activities in Orlando for these guys. I would absolutely pay to watch 800-person karaoke with every single MLS player in like a massive ballroom doing karaoke. We got to give them a couple days off afterwards.
Would it be like pro rel for karaoke? Like you have to bring your song to the piano lounge and then you belt it out and then everybody votes up, down, that type of thing?
I don't know, but we've now hit the pro rel reference to karaoke, and I think that means we got to move.
Everyone knows the best
wouldn't be
part.
fair. That wouldn't be fair because NYCFC has good Munder.
Nice.
So
yeah,
his voice is unbelievable. So it's game over. You can't win.
Everyone knows the best episode of Hard Knocks every season is the talent show for the rookies. So you just need to go full talent show.
But I feel like Charlie just threw a challenge out to literally every MLS player.
Yep.
Somebody's got to hear that and come out there and give us.
No one's gonna do it. Everyone's scared.
Wow.
You won't do it. You won't do it.
I love it.
I mean, no matter what happens, look, if he wins it,
kids.
first cup in NYCFC history. All right. Let's get to
a little bit on the end.
Sorry. MLS is back. We know all about it. You listen to the draw show. You're thinking about it. This is part of what I've been saying for a little while now, and basically since the tournament format came out, is that Group A is, I don't know if unfair is the right word, but significantly more difficult to advance from just based on odds. And American Soccer Analysis did their homework on this one. And if you think back on the format here, you have 6 teams in Group A and every other group has 4. The top 2 get through, and so just pure math, that's 33% for Group A and 50% for all the other groups. Then you have 4 best third-place teams, which jumps it up to about 66% for all the teams that aren't Group A, and about 50% for Group A to get through. Now, it's probable that Group A will get a third-place team through just because they'll have more teams to get more points. But there's a lot of people out there suggesting this, that Group A should have gotten an automatic bid for the third-place team to help even out this odds play.
Yep.
What do you guys think about that? What would you be thinking if you're Jim Curtin or if you're Ronnie Dyla or one of the teams in Group A that feels like, hey, we should get through. We have the talent. We performed. Why weren't we seeded in some way? Is there an element of quote-unquote unfairness here, or is it just like, hey, get on with it?
No, it's unfair, and it's right there. It's right there in the math, and the guys at American Soccer Analysis ran the numbers, which is what they do. And as you said, you looked at it first thing and you're like, this seems wrong. And it is wrong. And they came up with the slight modification where teams in Group A have 60% chance, B, C, D, the rest of the teams, 62% chance. As it stands now, it's teams in Group A about 50% chance. And then the rest, B, C, DE 65% chance. So just making this little fix makes it more equitable, takes away the inherent disadvantage of being in Group A. To me, there's no reason this can't happen.
Fully agree with everything you said. Just the way you posed the question was, if you're Jim Curtin, what do you think? He's going down there and playing 2 teams that are expansion teams that have basically never played soccer before as a group. So I think that's just the counter for Jim Curtin.
Gosh,
I'm just saying.
You're going to trash these guys already?
I'm just saying. Sup, Nashville? Bashville, baby. Let's go. I'm just saying. I don't know that Jim Curtin got that hard done by getting Miami and Nashville in a year in which they'd never played before. They played 2 games, and then they were on a global pandemic layoff for 3.5 months.
But if you're in New York City FC, you don't feel slighted that you're not a top-seeded team?
I don't know. I'm not in New York City FC, so I don't have to worry about that.
If you were.
I would never be. So I won't be quoted. I won't be forced into this metaphor scenario.
I mean, look, the other point here is that
Charlie.
It is 5 of 6 outside of Jim Curtin, new head coaches. And I get those advantages, and I think the Union and I think NYCFC do have advantages there, and they will play, depending on the schedule, potentially 2 teams that have not played more than 2 official games together before. But, man, the math just doesn't add up. Now, the flip side of this is because there are 6 teams in that group, it is more probable that the third-place team within that group will have more points than the third-place teams in the other group, which makes it more probable that that third-place team will get through anyway, so this scenario might just play out exactly as you might have thought without the automatic bid. I mean, it's pretty likely that third place in Group A is going to have more points than the others, and therefore this is moot. But it is something to think about as we push into and think about this tournament more in the sort of strategy perspective, which you wrote about on MLSsoccer.com this weekend, Doyle, and you compared it to the World Cup, which is obvious. It's the same format for all intents and purposes. What was your conclusion in your piece? As these teams in Group A and beyond think about how to win this tournament and start planning, how are they thinking? How should they be thinking?
I do, like, I went into it expecting to do research on summer tournaments and figure out that teams that counterattack usually win, because we think about the Chilean teams that won Copa America in 15 and 16, and yeah, they pressed the teams that they were better than, but against Argentina, against Colombia, against the really good teams, they countered. Then I thought about, France in 2018, like they were a complete counterattacking team. Brazil in 2019 Copa America, obviously they spent some time playing like Brazil, but they also countered Argentina to death after going up. And I expected the numbers to bear that out. But counterattacking has actually become less prominent in summertime tournaments over the past decade. Teams that are great at it, if you have Mbappe, freaking be a counterattacking team. But if you don't, it's become less of a weapon. And I think teams are they're better organized. They understand where to take professional fouls, and counterattacking isn't as obvious a solution in these tournaments. And what it really comes down to is almost that there's no pattern. That like whatever you do, whatever you're best at, lean into that. Let that be like if you're Toronto SC and they're a pretty good pressing team and they can counter, but what they really are is a good possession team. NYCFC the same way. Lean into that and be that. If you're the Red Bulls, go all out manic press. Use 3 subs in the 55th minute to get fresh legs out there, because there's no difference between Brian White and Tom Barlow. No offense to those guys. They're both good MLS players, but like what really matters is, can you be kamikazes out there and press. Now, if you're a pure counterattacking team, like I think the Crew can be, then be a counter. Like, but whatever it is, lean into that. The one thing that has changed a ton over the past decade in these summertime tournaments, set pieces. Teams are just so much better on attacking set pieces now than they were a decade ago. I think there's more time put into it. They're more elaborately rehearsed. In 2012 Euros, I think it was about 25% of goals came on set pieces. In 2018 World Cup, it was just about 40% of goals were scored.
Yeah, because everyone in 2012 Euros played in 2004. They were like, Greece won this tournament? Yeah, maybe we should work on set pieces.
Fair. No, it's a fair point. But and when I think about that, and then you think about the fact that teams that score first win about 70% of the time, like, God, if you want the long shot, dark horse, good money play, you got to be a Colorado Rapids fan right now. They scored 20 set-piece goals last year, which is obscene. And then in the first 2 games of this season, they scored 2 more set-piece goals, one from Kai and then the late winner from Drew Moore. So it's have that identity, be confident in who you are, and impose that on the other team. Make early subs in the second half to seize initiative, and you better be good on set pieces. You better be really good on set pieces.
Doyle just teased his dark horse. Charlie, do you have a dark horse? And you can't take seeded teams. You can't take the expected powers. We sort of teased this when we did our preview, but we were all pretty giddy and a little bit loopy. So now we're just
Charlie has to get his contact list out to see who he calls most often, to see who he's allowed to pick.
Well, do you have a dark horse, Charlie?
I mean, I did say Houston Dynamo could be my dark horse.
He did go hard.
I did.
Houston Dynamo, legendarily terrible on set pieces last year, but continue going.
Well, they have a new coach.
That's true.
That's who I think is my dark horse.
Can you expand on it though? Is it just that like in Manotas and Elise, they have 2 talents who can just annihilate a team and win you a trophy?
Yeah, when you say pick someone to counterattack through, like an Mbappe, well, Elise is like the Mbappe speed-wise and counterattack threat that Mbappe is on the world stage for MLS. That's Elise. Albert Elise, when he's motivated, healthy, he's going to cause, no matter who he's playing against, he's going to cause them fits because he can get up and down. He's so powerful. He's got the pace, and he knows how he can hurt you, and he's going to do it. You can't stop him. Now, what has let him down is his finishing in the final third, the productivity. Is that final pass finding the feet of Manotas? Is that final shot on target? If he can do that in this tournament, and you're talking about players who want to go to the next level, they want to go to Europe, well, this is a great tournament to get your foot in the door, and then you finish out this year strong. So then come winter, you're off somewhere, right? So for me, Houston Dynamo with Tab, obviously – new coach, new philosophy, getting everyone to buy into his system. Listen, if I'm a new coach and I have 2 of the most talented players in the league on my roster, and they've already said, I want to go to Europe, I want to play at the highest level, I'm going to help you get there. But in order for you to get there, you got to help me. Help me help you, right? It's that simple. It's that simple. Buy in to what I'm going to preach for the next 6 months. And I will get you to the promised land. Just trust me. That's all you got to do is trust me. Well, Houston Dynamo have all the pieces to have success. When you have Manotas and Elise on the attacking end, You have players who can win you games. Now you just have to buy into the defensive philosophies and marking, set pieces, do all those things like you said. Now you have a team that can really hurt you. Houston Dynamo is for me the dark horse. Doesn't mean it's guaranteed success, but they definitely have the players to hurt teams in this league.
From a betting perspective, their odds are gonna be really good too. Like if we're talking true dark horses here in Colorado, I think it's like 40-1 or something like that. I'll let you jump in here, but I just have to say, Doyle, the one thing we haven't talked about, and I'm not convinced of the Dynamo Charlie in any way, but we didn't even say Darwin Quintero's name in that. And if they're saying we are going to be a counterattacking team, Darwin has had all this time to be healthy, to be fresh. He doesn't even have to start. If you want to start Memo, then start Memo. And he was killing it on the back post last year and to start the beginning of this year. So you have those two options. You have Quintero to change the game. You have Christian Ramirez to change the game as well. And then if I was Tab, I would be like, I'm attacking with 3. Like, I'm just going to attack with 3. And to get my organization down, I'm not going to ask Valentin or Lundqvist to try to push forward. It's probably not their strength anyway. And then you have Boniak and Vera and maybe Martinez, who is more of he's not really the like Murad forward, stay in the final third sort of 10 anyway. He's really more of almost like a hybrid 8. So you have like an 8-person front, so to speak, that you can put up. And if it's Darwin, Manotas, and Elise, and you can get into the open field and there are tired legs, and you've been the one who's been training in humidity and heat in Houston for the better part of a month, maybe that is enough to think, well, maybe we can make a run at this. And then you look at your group. Now it's going to be tough because you got LAFC and you got Portland.
Wait. You think that there might be a problem in Kiki Struna and Victor Cabrera trying to stop Carlos Vela?
I just
missed that part.
Ever leave out Minor Figueroa when you talk about the Houston Dynamo backline. Do not besmirch the legend like that.
And also, don't think there's anybody else in this league that's going to stop Carlos Vela.
Understood.
Either.
I agree with that, Charlie.
Okay.
I would agree. I would say
don't just single those two out.
Houston is on the top of the list. We've seen how much having valuable center backs and having a good center back partnership matters in MLS, especially in the playoffs. If this is the playoff scenario, Houston is high on that list of there's only so far they can go because they don't have 2 center backs that will organize, that will keep things clean consistently, and that you can build the rest of your team off of. It's probably one of the reasons Seattle isn't an obvious.
How many MLS teams have that?
Yeah. No, you are not wrong. You are not wrong in that assessment.
Charlie, give me your dark horse.
Question mark.
Give me your dark horse.
So I think it's fair for me to pick Columbus because they didn't make the playoffs last year, right? Like that counts as a dark horse. I would say the one thing that stands out is you've already discussed the issues with being in Group A because of the 6 teams and the less opportunity to get through. Group D and Group E then. Group D led by Real Salt Lake and Group E by Atlanta United. Those are the worst seeded teams. Atlanta United without Joseph Martinez, an RSL team that's lost Severino, that we don't know who their match winner, who the guy they play through is right now. So I think the Colorado shout has a lot of legitimacy there because SKC is going in without Felipe Gutierrez. So there's question marks there. But to me, it's Columbus because I think they have a pretty good chance of getting out of that group. And they have a spread of talent where they have veterans who will understand how to handle their body, how to handle this whole situation, but have youth as well that will have fresh legs. I think they're good in the back. I think they've got a veteran and goalkeeper, and they've got a few different ways that they can hurt you. Plus, they've got Zelarayan, who's going to cover every blade of grass and dominate the game, and Nagby next to him, and Arter, which I think might be the best midfield for a scenario like this of 4 or 5 days off, having to bounce back, all of them in their prime, all of them have high energy, all of them can connect because they all have clean first touch, want to keep the ball moving, all those things. So I like this Columbus group in general, but I think for a tournament like this, but to Doyle's point, how will they choose to play? What is it that they're best at? And will Caleb Porter go 100 degrees in that direction for this tournament? Or is he going to try and one-up Greg Berhalter and have the most beautiful soccer and all these things?
I just want to say, I'm not sure what
Charlie just with a finger whack. Charlie's out here on the Kiki Struna train. Oh, my God.
I just want to say, I'm not sure what 100 degrees in one direction is, but that I completely understood what it meant.
I think 100% would probably be better, but thank
360%.
Yeah. Can I ask, is FC Dallas, can they be a dark horse, or are they too much of a proven commodity?
Yeah, they cannot be a dark horse. And
I think they can
I
be a
felt
dark
this-
horse.
I
They're
felt
not.
the
They're
same-
not in the top like 7 or 8, are they?
But they
if you
are
go
in the
through-
top 2 in their group going in already. They're one of only 2 playoff teams in their group. Like they are. It's assumed that they will get out of their group at a minimum.
yes,
Which I don't know if that.
That's fair.
I guess if you're
I'm
saying to win
that-
the whole thing.
I'm saying a dark horse to win the whole thing. And the reason why I say that is what they showed against Seattle in the playoffs last year. So they have that little inkling of belief. They have the young legs and they have a mixture. So you have you have Rito Ziegler and Hollingshead and some others that are going to sit back and say, okay, we understand how to manage ourselves through the tournament. But then I just look at what they could be in something like this and the options that they have, especially if Franco Jara comes in and is able to play and depending on the transfer windows and everything else. I know he's supposed to join up with them, but I don't know what that means for them as far as availability right now. That kind of seems like it's up in the air. Fafa, Pomical. I know Mosquera is unproven, but off the bench, if you're just asking him for like 15 minutes to run, Michael Barrios in these conditions.
So you're naming
No,
all
he
these
can't
players.
be
They can't be a dark horse. You're naming all these players who can make it. This is not a dark horse team.
Just
A
because
dark horse team.
relative.
A dark horse team is a team that's expected to finish 4th, maybe 3rd in the group and get out. That's a dark horse team.
You're twisting this around the Houston Dynamo right now. You're twisting this around the Houston Dynamo.
I am not. I'm just throwing it out. Dark horse is a team that is not expected to even get out of the group, not even close.
I think
And
it's
they get
not
out.
expected to win. I don't think that Dallas are expected to win. They're going to be my dark horse expected to win, but not quite expected to crash like the Houston Dynamo.
This is the most
would be expected to
weeby
crash.
thing of all
This is-
time.
You
Yeah.
just picked Columbus, who put
Oh.
in.
They
Lucas
didn't make the
Zelleraya.
playoffs last year, Weeby. You picked a team who you were like, I think they could beat Seattle because they almost beat Seattle on the road in the postseason at the end of last year.
I'm saying I think they could win the whole thing and go on a run. I'm going to end this conversation right now because Nashville SC fans are like, David's wearing our shirt, but you guys won't talk about us. We got a bunch of tweets from Clay Lasole, who's also Clayler Swift, which I think is funny. He says it's on brand for Nashville in general, but expecting extra time to talk about all 5 teams other than Nashville in Group A, and then watching them talk about all 5 teams other than Nashville is still disappointing. Pharma Soccer did the breakdown locally. Stephen West did the same thing. He said, I'm thinking Nashville's chances to advance out of Group A are a lot better than Extratime did since we weren't even mentioned in the preview of Group A last week. So, Nashville, you're right. We basically skipped it other than one Doyle reference to Gary Smith.
They did
Nashville.
avoid NYCFC in their schedule. So they have Orlando, Philly, and Chicago, which in that group, I guess, is a little bit better, but it's still a team in Orlando that's hosting. We don't know what this team is. We don't know who they are. We didn't learn anything over the first 2 games. Not that that's much of a sample size to really feel strongly about, as Doyle said, steer into your identity completely in a tournament like this. We think that they're going to sit and counter, but they hadn't done it successfully in 2 weeks. So
I actually kind of disagree with that. I actually thought that they did a nice job of leaning into building from that central midfield pivot because they have Dax and they have Godoy, and those 2 guys can pass. Like Dax is one of the all-time great 6s in this league, but he is that not necessarily because he has Diego Chara like range, though he's a great ball winner. It's because he is so good at making those 3rd-line passes to feet in the pockets. And then Godoy could do that as well. And Godoy, of course, is a wonderful diagonal switch. And they were actually able to use that a little bit against Atlanta, but a lot against Portland. Like, if you go back and you watch that game against Portland, Nashville actually controlled the game.
But didn't Portland take lead in the 10th minute? And then
10th or 15th minute. But, it wasn't just that they sat back. It's like they were under legitimate pressure. The problem was that just in terms of the attacking third, Nashville, I don't think they have the talent.
This is where I'm going with this. Because who scores? Like, that's part of this equation, right? And who can win.
Walker Zimmerman might be the best forward on this team.
I mean,
Oh.
It's Walker on set pieces, but then other than that, what's proven? I know Don Baji is another Extratime like favorite from over the years, But
Charlie's not convinced there. Charlie, I agree with the finger wag on that one.
I love Dombaji, but not convinced is probably the right way to put it. David Accam, another extra time classic over the years. We did not mention Bobby Warshaw, David Accam for MVP. That's a classic right there. And then
I would say this.
I like Leal, but like again, where the goal is going to come.
But the other thing about that was this is only a 2-week sample size. I don't think it's fair to base everything off of it. But in using David Accam in the starting lineup and the way they chose to use Leal, it almost showed a lack of willingness to take a risk from Gary Smith. David Accam's a name. You know what you're going to get, but you also know what you're not going to get. And I think Leal is a player where it's like, if we put him on the wing, he'll get a couple opportunities. Take the risk to put him in the middle in front of those 2 center mids rather than playing 3 defensive mids and try and have him control the game a little bit and move Mukhtar around. I'm not saying this is everything, but it felt like here are the pieces I have. I'm just going to stick them in as expected.
They didn't end up playing 3 defensive mids. They had Mukhtar starting as a 10 with Godoy and Dax behind him, and then Leal was on the wing, and he and Mukhtar or switched places quite a bit. Like there was a decent amount of interchange. They just they just don't have a goal scorer. I think I'm skeptical of Gary Smith's. Because we know how his team played when 10 years ago when they won MLS Cup they weren't but like based upon 2 games I think there is some evidence here that they are going to try to use the ball, which I do think makes some sense, but like it doesn't in the end it doesn't add up to goals maybe with that roster that they have.
TBD. Would you rather be a counterattacking team or a team that tries to use the ball in like a more possession-based style, Charlie, just based on the conditions?
On the conditions, keep the ball, make the team run and chase, and just be smart when you do lose the ball that the team is looking on to counter. It's easier said than done. The teams that are fantastic counterattack teams have to make sure that when they do counter and break, that even a team tries to foul you, it's not good enough, right? If you know Albert Elise is the guy you're going to on a counterattack, make sure that he can't get fouled or the person who's trying to get him the ball doesn't get fouled before he gets going. And that's the key. Can they be that good and that clutch at when they do start to counter, not let an opposing team prevent them from countering by fouling them? If you can do that, that's the key to success. And if you're a possession-based team that's just going to keep the ball, ping it around, get the other team to chase or tire, that when you do lose the ball, that you're smart enough not to let teams hurt you on the counter, not to let Houston get on that break and get Albert Elise into open space. So it's a chess match, but it's all about if I had to choose between the 2 sides, give me the ball all day. I cannot stand being a team that you seem like you're disinterested as a striker because you can't get involved. You're just up there hanging out. And then when you do, you're not in rhythm. It's horrible. It's horrible chasing. You don't want to chase. So give me possession and us have the ball, and then you get your touches, and the other team's just like, I can't stand playing against this team because we don't touch the ball. And that's where you have the most joy. When you have the ball, you feel like, we have the ball. It's fun. Chasing, defending, count me out. Nope.
I love that every example is based on the Houston Dynamo right now for Charlie. It's like my favorite thing right now in this moment. And by the way, I just want to establish Rito Ziegler, Matt Hedges, Hollingshead, Cannon, FC Dallas, Dark Horse. I'm sticking to it. Let's talk Miami because we didn't really hit this. Like we joked around with Paul McDonough when he was on the show on Thursday, and he's like, yeah, we're going to go get a DP attacker and a TAM aide and now potentially linked with Fabian Johnson. But like, we didn't actually dig into it. We just threw the jokes that we normally do, maybe not jokes in this case, Edinson Cavani or Mario Balotelli, et cetera, et cetera. There was a pretty good debate going on when I had to restart my computer during the pre-show meeting about what this DP attacker should be, because there was some of you I heard saying has to be a number 9 because Julian Carranza is young and quote-unquote unproven, and also because he's been injured, though he is back. And then, Doyle, you were pushing back hard.
Yep.
So what is the case for Inter Miami at that DP attacker spot? If you're looking for a profile, what should Paul McDonough be looking for? What is he looking for? Because he is obviously looking, negotiating, trying to get something done.
I think a pure midfield chance creator. Now, whether it's someone who plays as a, actual number 10 or someone who's maybe a little bit more of a winger, I think that's the most obvious need because Rodolfo Pizarro is capable of just amazing stuff, but he's not a game-controlling number 10. He was never that in Mexico. He's never been that for the Mexican national team, and he certainly didn't look like that in 2 games this year. Pellegrini, the young winger that they spent a lot of money on, he struggled in those first 2 games. He was not able to create chances. He wasn't even in the lineup in the second game. So I think, you want someone who could play in those pockets underneath and who could put the ball on a platter. And I busted Paul's chops a little bit. I asked him, how is Hamas going to fit into the because that would be just such the obvious home run signing for this
Grand
team.
Grand slam.
Yeah, like a no brainer. But if it's not Hamas, it should be someone like him, because based upon what we've seen, this team has good depth in most places. This team has players who are willing to do the running both on and off the ball. I thought Morgan, the Scottish winger, looked pretty good. I thought Robbie Robinson looked excellent as a number 9 in that second game against DC United. And I know Charlie and I have a little bit of a disagreement over where his long-term position is. But I think the point is that if you have guys like that, then you need the string puller. And if I was Inter Miami, I would be looking for that DP elite level chance creator with that final spot, especially because if you look at the number 9, they already invested millions in Carranza, who is an Argentinian youth national team player. They already invested the number 1 draft pick in Robbie Robinson, who assisted on the only goal that they've scored so far as a team. Like that's a significant investment. If you go out and you get Edinson, Cavani, those guys are never going to see the field. Then during crucial developmental years, those guys are never going to see the field. Mm-hmm. So it doesn't make sense to me, especially because based upon the 2-game sample size, the real issue is, can they create those chances, less than can they finish them?
What does that mean for the lineup? I'm looking at the 11 right now. Does that mean Pizarro shifts left or
no? I think Pizarro shifts deeper.
They played a 3-4-2-1 in that second game, and they looked much better. And Pizarro was in that 2 line playing kind of like Barco and Pitti play for Atlanta. So you find a guy to play next to him. Now, does that mean Pellegrini becomes a wingback? I don't know. But that's something for Diego Alonso to figure out. And as we've seen over the past couple of years, there's an unprecedented level of depth in MLS now compared to years past. So people brought DPs off the bench and won MLS Cups. We saw it in 2018 with Atlanta. And I think that's a team that Paul McDonough built. So I think that's something that they're going to be figuring out. But go ahead, David.
But even if you do play a 4-3-3, and I think Doyle touched on it, I think Pizarro's best position is, as you could call it, an 8, whatever you want, behind a true trans creator, ahead of someone who's a legit D mid, because Pizarro covers an insane amount of ground, can always be an option, and then has the opportunity to step into the final third and create goals when he's able to. And I would argue his best moments with Mexico have been in that role behind someone who is more of a true chance creator, with his job being keep possession, help our 6 in big moments in transition and things like that. So I think Pizarro fits into that pretty well. We all just said it. James Rodriguez is the obvious from a player profile, everything point of view. I guess my question would be, if he's not available, if they can't get that done, is it worth getting someone else who's a 10? And I don't know if that's Silva. I don't know if that's Goetze. I don't know what type of player they're looking at over a guy in Cavani who, with Uruguay, drops deep, and Suarez is the one who stretches the back line and has played as a creator to a level and is an elite goal scorer and is a threat on set pieces and is a world-class player.
I wouldn't say Cavani drops deep.
Yes, he does. Watch him play with Uruguay. It's him dropping in to get the ball and clipped over the top for Suarez, or clipped to the back post for Suarez. Like, especially as Suarez has decreased his ability to cover ground over the last few years. Trust me. He has the ability to do that and do it at an elite level. I'm not saying that's his best skill set, but is he better at that? than Götze is right now, or I don't know who else is available as that number 10 that you're going to really spend big on and build a team around? Boom.
I don't know. I thought somebody else was going to jump in there. I didn't know. I was waiting.
I almost feel like the real question is, do they go for a long-established veteran player like Cavani or Götze or
Aguero contract ends in 2021. That's another player, Argentinian.
Do they do that, or do they go in the opposite direction and do, because they've been rumored with Thiago Almada, who is the next number 10. He's 20 years old, the next number 10 coming through in Argentina, and like that seems to be the club that they want to be in a lot of ways. But it's an open question of whether you can look. LAFC has really leaned into having those young players and developing them, but they also have Carlos Vela, and I think it's a stretch to assume that Pizarro is going to be able to be for Miami what Vela was or is for LAFC, or what like Jovinko was for Toronto.
Yeah, I think when I think about this and I think about trying to sell those players, you need almost like, and you've used this term a lot in the past, Doyle, and so maybe that's why it's stuck in my head, but like a force multiplier, in the sense that a guy that's going to make your young prospects look a lot better, not because they aren't that good, but because they're going to play up to that level of ability and vision, and it's going to change the way that they think about the game and the way they perform. And you have to have the performance aspect to get the sell-on aspect. One of the things I was thinking about, Dave, when you were talking about Pizarro in the 8, is that Paul also said that he wants to get a TAM 8. And that would seem to me like maybe that's the guy that pushes Pizarro either forward, or maybe it's Pizarro, that TAM 8, and then like Trapp in that 3 behind, and you're still trying to get a DP to play next to somebody else. I don't know who it would be. Maybe it is Pellegrini. Maybe he plays farther forward. I don't know. We haven't seen enough. But I trust Paul and Diego Alonso.
So I would just say this. I think we do a disservice sometimes in acting like the guy, like Pellegrini and Carranza are at the level coming into MLS that Almiron and Joseph were coming into MLS. And Almiron, as young as he was 23 when he got to MLS and had been a full-time starter for Lanús. And Joseph obviously had trouble in Torino, but was a full-time starter for Venezuela at some pretty good Copa America performances for Venezuela relative, blah, blah, blah. So I think, and that doesn't go into the fact that they had Michael Parkhurst and Brad Guzan and Carlos Carmona and all those other pieces that were veterans. So I just think Doyle mentioned it. Carlos Vela is a big part of what LAFC created, but they did bring in Lee Win that first year to have him. And I don't know how much they thought he would be used. He obviously wasn't much as necessary, but they had those veteran options.
Did Benny too. Benny played
first year, yeah, and then Lee.
And so I just wonder, do you bring in a 20-year-old number 10 and say the team is his and Pellegrini's and Carranza's, because Rodolfo Pizarro is just not good enough to carry guys in MLS with a new roster.
We haven't seen enough of Inter Miami. That's what it comes down to. 2 games is not enough of a sample size to say.
But we've seen enough of Rodolfo Pizarro. We know how good this player is, right? He is not Carlos Vela.
Not within the whole Inter Miami setup. If you give me 12 games and I say, Rodolfo Pizarro came up or escalated or did something different
at 26, Rodolfo Pizarro is not changing the player he is.
He can change.
And Carlos Vela is the best player.
He can change the way he plays within the team, though.
Okay, that's fair. But I'm still saying Vela is the best player of his generation in Mexico, and he's good enough to carry what LAFC is doing to some extent when necessary. Pizarro's not becoming that person right now. He could become a vital part of his team, but you're still not contending at the level of LAFC with him as your best player in Major League Soccer.
I mean, it depends on what they do with the group around Pizarro. Like I said, it's only 2 games in. Give him a half a season, and then you can say he can or can't do something. It's just not enough time.
Man, Charlie said his favorite part of the show was coming on and dropping hot takes on Mondays, and now he's putting a toe in that Cape Cod water because he doesn't want to get too cold or hot.
Hey, I'm going to give Inter Miami their fair shake because it's just not enough time. 2 games is not enough time.
we got 2 years so far with LAFC. We've seen a lot. Carlos Vela proved a lot. And the report now is LAFC are signing Andy Nahar, which nobody's surprised about because Andy was literally training last year and like in celebration photos in the locker room. They're like, oh no, he's just with us for a while. We do have
Zero chance we sign him. It's purely rehab.
Wink, wink. Yeah, definitely not. So still just a rumor, but it feels like it's going to happen here. And you heard Paul McDonough say we have the number 1 spot in the allocation order. And we'll end this show here with a Fabian Johnson to MLS rumor, which that was coming. You knew it was.
I've heard a bunch of those.
SBI Soccer reporting that he's interested in moving to MLS. I'm interested in having ribs for lunch, but it's probably not going to happen for me. Let's say he's a TAM player. Where would you put him? Is Inter Miami a place that he could go? Because Paul did say we have that number 1 spot and we think we'll use it. He would seem like a guy that they would use it on. Does he fit in Miami? And if not, where could he fit? Where do you think he would be good in MLS? Wow. Everyone's just scanning their brains.
Well, I was looking at the allocation order. So technically LAFC is 1, which they would use on Nahar. And then Paul and Inter Miami would be 2. And 3 would be FC Cincinnati. I don't know if you're FC Cincinnati, if you can let him drop past you, if he's willing to sign and you're at the top of the allocation order to use on him. Because I don't know who else you're going to use that spot on. And I know they signed Regatin and Kubo and all these guys, but I don't think Regatin's played soccer in a year. Like, I think he's been out. So if you have the opportunity to sign Johnson.
Fabian Johnson's barely played the last 3 years.
I don't think Regatin was on a roster coming into this year.
Yeah, that's fair.
Yeah, he was, but look, he wasn't being paid by his Turkish team, I don't think. So
right.
Either way, the guy's good. I mean, in the small sample size he's had, the guy's a baller. You can see that he's a good player. Can he stay healthy?
Now Charlie's sold on someone he's seen twice, but not into Miami.
You can tell if someone's a good player right off the bat.
But Fabian Johnson's a high-level player. I think the easy answer is there's not a team he doesn't fit into. It's just where are the resources worth it for a lot of teams?
Yeah, because he's going to be 33. He's played a total of about 1,800 minutes over the last 3 years. He has 2 goals and 1 assist since the middle of 2017. He hasn't played more than 2,000 minutes in a season, excuse me, since 15-16. He's only played more than 2,000 minutes in a season once in the past half decade. We all know if he's fit, Fabian Johnson is an excellent soccer player. It seems crazy to me to expect him to be fit as he hits his mid-30s and starts playing in an environment in terms of heat, humidity, where he always looked uncomfortable for the U.S. national team. Like, Fabian Johnson had some very good games for the U.S. He also had some very, very poor games for the U.S., and it often seemed to be climate related. If I was an MLS GM, I would not use TAM spot on Fabian Johnson. I just can't see it working out.
I agree with what Doyle says, but you look at the allocation list and it's like Cincinnati, Vancouver, Orlando are 3 through 6, and who else on the allocation order is even going to come back to MLS anytime soon?
It's fair, but maybe instead of using the spot, you flip. Like, I could see the Galaxy, maybe be interested, because obviously get lost Katai, and Schelotto has said we want to keep crossing the ball. We need to keep crossing the ball more, and Fabian Johnson's an excellent crosser of the ball. He could play either wing. He could play either fullback slot. So maybe he makes sense for the Galaxy, but then you have to work out the trade. That's the one where I could see it.
Yeah, RSL could be an interesting one as well. If this is a cheaper way for them to fill while Savarino, bring in the next young guy and getting some production, then whatever it is that they would. I mean, they're not going to go out and splash on a DP right now. So he
would have to be a TAM player. I don't think anybody would take a DP risk right now, given the injury history. He has the ability. We'll see what happens. We'll end the show here, and I'd like to make this somewhat regular with Anders' best take in the group chat that is also going on. Here's the quote for you. Red Bulls are a dark horse because they don't actually win knockout competitions. So that's producing 100's take from this conversation, which, on a different day, I might have stolen it as my own. That's it for us. 10 years of extra time. Thank you guys for joining me today. Thank you for hanging out for years and years and years at this point.
Charlie's having a sandwich on the side?
What?
Didn't take a single bite.
This was the distraction for me.
That's
For the past 30 minutes, I've just been staring at this beautiful sandwich.
Is that a meatball sub?
Oh,
Oh, hold on. I'm going to guess on that. I think that is like Cajun turkey.
Ooh,
Look
whoa,
at
that's
that.
like a whole.
What is that?
It's real New England grinder right there.
it's ham. You have mayonnaise, tomato, hot peppers, and a couple of slight pieces of toasted bacon.
No aioli in there?
No way.
On a
He's got the hot peppers.
On a ciabatta.
On a ciabatta. Oh my gosh! I've had to stare at this for 30 minutes. Oh, and you wonder why I'm not on my A game because I'm a little. I'm looking at this.
Yeah.
Flip flopping all over the place.
This is why Charlie doesn't get the captain's armband, because once his head gets turned, you can't trust him for production anymore.
Hey, life of a striker.
Once Arsenal comes in with a baguette.
Hey, life of a striker. Life of a striker. Okay.
Yeah. He's like, is that a meat pie in the second row? All right, guys. Thanks for joining us. To everybody, thanks for 10 years. Thanks for tuning in and listening. We'll see you on Thursday. Enjoy your weekend. Bye.